Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing why moving forward attracts an ex. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Check out my socials for extra content. The links are in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing why moving forward attracts an ex. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you might have heard me suggest that you move forward with your life to increase the chance of getting your ex back. But how and why can this help? In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 reasons why moving forward attracts an ex. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is standing still. So as we move forward through today's podcast, understanding why moving forward can attract an ex, we also have to consider what happens if you don't do that. And first of all, we're going to be speaking about if you stand still. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means exactly what it says on the tin. You're standing still. You're exactly the same person that your ex-dumper would remember from your relationship. Now, though, of course, you were once together, you were once very much in love, that, of course, goes without saying. If you are looking at your now former partner, of course, you had to be together in the first place, and therefore there was something at some point that did bring you together, and that did likely bring you success in the relationship. But unfortunately, when your ex-dumper considers you're standing still, what it means is you are the same person that they dumped. Now, when you and your now former partner first got together, you would likely have been feeling a very high level of romantic emotional attraction for one another. That is why you got together. That is why you built a romantic relationship. But as the relationship moved forward through time, you and your now former partner would also have been growing. But how did you grow? And what exactly was the trajectory? Well, when we consider you standing still, this could actually fall into one of 2 categories. The first of which is that you never moved forward from the point of when you and your now ex got together. I.e., when you first got together, you were version 1 of yourself, your now ex was version 1 of themselves, but 10 years down the line, you're still version 1, and they are version 2, 3, 4, or 5. As you can see, there is now a discrepancy, and sadly, perhaps why you were dumped, because you had grown apart. Now, there is another potential possibility of when we say you're standing still, and that is not so much considering the person that you maybe didn't grow through the relationship, but more about you are exactly the same person that they dumped at the end. In this respect, maybe you did grow as a person. Maybe you did become version 2, 3, 4, and 5 of yourself, just as your partner did. Maybe you were both growing together very, very nicely. But perhaps in this situation, you caused an action to create a loss of romantic emotional attraction in your relationship. Maybe, for instance, you cheated on your partner. Your now ex-dumper instantly lost romantic emotional attraction because of the deceit, because of the hurt, because you cheated on them. So it wasn't to do with the fact that you hadn't grown as a person in this regard. Maybe you had, but you did something to cause a loss of romantic emotional attraction, and this lifestyle that you were living at the time, maybe you were meeting various different people and cheating on your then partner with many different other people. Maybe you're still that person. So if your ex-dumper was to find out about what you're doing with your life through friends of a friend, or maybe reading on socials, or maybe bumping into you and having a conversation, they would come to a conclusion that you are still living a life where you are meeting lots of people, you're going on lots of dates, you're likely spending time with different people and not settling down. That could make your ex-dumper feel that you've stood still. You're still the person that they dumped. So as you can see, there are 2 very huge different possibilities here of what we mean when we say you're standing still. Perhaps you never grew as a person, perhaps you didn't evolve, perhaps you and your now former partner sadly grew apart, or maybe you were growing together in a nice way, but you were living somewhat of a double life, or maybe nothing as sinister as that, but you did something which caused the relationship to end and you were continuing to live that way, which means your ex-dumper would see you as standing still as the person that they needed to dump. Perhaps, for instance, you were really bad with money. Maybe instead of spending the money that you were supposed to be paying the bills with, maybe you were using that in other ways that you shouldn't have been doing, and it caused not just a loss of trust between you and your now former partner, but a lot of big, huge problems between you in a logistical sense. You're not paying the bills, instead you're spending it on other things. If your now ex-dumper finds out that you're still spending money in crazy ways, again, it shows you haven't moved forward. Again, it shows you've stood still. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you have a new hype feature, please hype this video as well. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is moving backwards. Now, if you were thinking to yourself that standing still sounds pretty bad, well, moving backwards probably and unfortunately is even worse. Again, we're going to be getting to the reasons why moving forward attracts the next, so please keep listening through. But this is really, really important to understand. You may have been standing still, however, you may also have been moving backwards. Now, what does this mean? Well, again, there are different possibilities of how we could consider you moving backwards. Now, as I gave the example earlier on, when you and your now former partner met each other, you were version 1 and they were version 1 of themselves. And instead of growing to become a better version of yourself, growing together moving forward, perhaps you've actually declined in a certain way. Now, this might be because you're living your life in a way where you felt it was going great, you feel that you were blindsided and you were randomly dumped. Unfortunately, it wouldn't have been random in their mind, but maybe for you, you felt it was random, and at that stage, you really regress due to the shock of the breakup. You've been shocked, you've been blindsided, you didn't see it coming, you no longer feel able to go to work, for instance. And if you can't go to work, you lose your job. If you lose your job, you're not earning money. If you're not earning money, you can't pay your bills. If you can't pay your bills, you lose your house, etc., etc., etc. This shows you to be a worse romantic relationship option than you previously were. Now, I gave the example that I've just done, but it's not all about money. It's not about a money-centric situation. It's about you being a valued romantic partner. If you can't live your life in a way where you show that you are a valued romantic partner, but unfortunately, you're not going to be somebody that others want to date. You have to be a dateable individual. You have to be someone that others want to be in a relationship with. This isn't about money. This isn't about being a gold digger. This is just about seeing you as a dateable option. And if once, when they knew you, you had your own house, you had a great job, and now you have no job, and you live back with your parents, you can see this doesn't put you in the best light. Again, that is an example of you moving backwards. In this regard, you felt you were moving forward with your life. You were shocked by the breakup. You couldn't continue your life in the way that you felt you were doing well. And unfortunately, you've now fallen backwards to become version 0.5 of yourself, version 0.5. But it doesn't have to happen post-breakup. It could have happened during the relationship. Maybe, for instance, when you two got together, you were a very healthy individual. And perhaps through the relationship, you decided to make life choices which absolutely changed that. Now, this could be to do with your eating habits, but it could also be due to substance abuse. Maybe when you two got together, you were very clean, and then throughout the relationship, you started to pick up habits which, if you're honest, are not clean and not healthy. Your now ex-dumper might not view you as someone who is as physically attractive as they once remembered, but it could also be as healthy, or also, more alarmingly, they could be concerned about the people you spend time with. Perhaps you live your life mixing with individuals that they don't feel safe with, they don't feel comfortable with. They don't want you to be spending time with these people. They don't want these people spending time in the house that they also live. You can see what I'm saying here. Your life may have spiraled in a direction, but although you might not think it's a problem, they see it as you moving backwards. Perhaps they remember you in one light, but through the relationship, you went a different path, and they unfortunately view that as moving backwards. Either way, if they see you as a version 0.5, a version 0.5, it's not attractive. This isn't going to help you get your ex back. Now, let's imagine post-breakup that you haven't changed any of these habits. You haven't changed living your life in the way that you are. you're still not living healthy, you're still living in a risky sense, again, it's showing you're moving backwards rather than stabilizing and moving forwards once more. Now remember when I said earlier that maybe you were shocked, maybe you were blindsided by the breakup. Well, if that happens, you're likely to feel angry, you're likely to feel bitter, you're likely to feel very, very frustrated. Well, if your ex-dumper sees these traits coming from you, even though you might believe they're totally justified, sadly, it is not attractive. If you want to get your ex back and you behave in a negative way, you're going to find it very hard to achieve your goal. Your ex-dumper is not likely to want to come back to you if they see you as a negative person. This is why I try to suggest that people do not post on social media negativity, whether it's things such as sad song lyrics, which might not seem particularly bad, you're not aiming them at an ex with horrible words about them, but just the fact that you are showcasing yourself as having a very low thought process, that does not make you a dateable individual. Now, don't get me wrong, if you need to talk, you need to talk. It's really, really important to speak, whether you speak with a local counsellor, local doctor, a coach like myself, friends and family, you need to release your emotion. I just don't suggest you do it online, because if your ex sees it, it ties back into what we said earlier about you not coming across as a dateable option. You need to have a stable mindset to be a potential romantic partner. If you are showcasing yourself through sad song lyrics as not being stable-minded, they're not likely to want to reconnect with you romantically. They might feel sorry, they might feel worried, but they're not likely to want to be romantic. But what if it's more than that? What if it's not just sad song lyrics? What if you're actually saying bad things about them? What if you're being negative? What if you're typing horrible things about your ex online? Or maybe you're actually saying them face to face. You bump into each other down the street, and what happens? You have an argument. You call them this, you call them that. Do you really think that is going to want them to want to reconnect with you? Do you really think they're going to want to get back in a relationship with you if you say negative things, even if you feel that they deserve it? You've got to think about this. It's not going to help. Now, maybe you heard of a saying, if you've got nothing good to say, then maybe you should say nothing at all. Well, although that is absolutely true, if your face is still saying these words, again, it's sadly not going to help you. If you bump into each other, and although you don't say anything, you give them a real dirty look, a real horrible look, a glare, all of that frustration coming out in your eyes, do you think that's going to help? Again, it's not. You can't be negative. If you behave in an angry or bitter way, well, unfortunately, your ex-dumper is going to view you as moving backwards from a happy person that they once remembered. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is moving forward. So now we're getting to the main point of today's podcast about why moving forward attracts an ex, why you need to be living your life in a positive way to increase that chance of getting your ex back. And the reason you should be understanding this a lot better already is because if you consider everything we've said so far, well, I'm now suggesting you do the opposite. Don't stand still. Certainly don't go backwards. Instead, go forwards. Everything else we've spoke about today has been providing negativity in regards to how your ex thinks of you. Standing still, moving backwards, it's all the same. You need to be moving forward. That is how they will see you more positively. That is how they can regrow the romantic emotional attraction that sadly they've currently lost. If you bump into your ex down the street, smile, say hi, but keep going unless they try and grab a word with you. Remember, moving forward means you're not chasing. Moving forward means you're doing your own thing. So if you see your ex, you'll smile and you'll say hi, but you keep doing what you're doing unless they ask for a conversation. That shows you as moving forward. It shows you as high value. It shows you as living your life to the full. If you do this type of behaviour, your ex-dumper will start to think, okay, they're being positive and not being horrible about things, despite the way the relationship ended. And yet, they're clearly focused on goals. They're clearly focused on doing what they're doing, going where they're going. That means they must be doing something of value. They don't really want to spend time with me. They must be doing something they're doing better than me. And hence, well, where does that place me? Are they meeting someone else? Do they like someone else? Is somebody better than myself? These are the types of thoughts that a dumper could come to if you behave in the way I've just suggested. But you don't just have to behave this way if you bump into your ex. Do it online. What that means is post things online which are positive. Don't reach out to your ex. Don't watch their stories. But if your ex reaches out to you, then you can respond. It's the same principle. That is how I suggest you live your life. Even if you don't see your ex, even if you don't believe they watch your socials, you need to be living your life for you, practicing those perishable skills such as dating skills, flirting skills, communication skills, all of the skills you will need if and when your ex ever reaches out to you. Because if you implement my version of a no contact rule, just by living your life in a positive way, using my version of no contact, it's going to be pulling on your ex the dumper, even if you don't see them, even if you don't communicate in any single way. That's what I'm on about by living your life in a positive sense, moving forward. Make new connections, join new classes, groups and clubs. Believe that tomorrow can be the best day of your life. Every single day, live with positivity. And if you move forward in this sense, it's going to be attractive, not just to your ex, but anybody else as well.